Hi everyone and welcome to St Clare's STEM update from Primary 1 through 6 with Mr Devaney. STEM is a multidisciplinary subject, meaning I teach more than one thing at a time. During science, we cover the three traditional subjects of physics, biology and chemistry, and this year we've had an additional focus looking at astrology or cosmology, looking at the stars, as well as a big focus on virology and how we combat COVID in our school. In our school, we are very lucky to have access to lots of fantastic technology, especially iPads, and we've been discovering ways that we can record and help this to build our learning. We have been learning skills within engineering to help us design, plan and build. Our work within science, technology and engineering have given us a fantastic context to build our confidence and skills within mathematics. You may be wondering what this looks like in terms of a classroom. What we look to do is use our topic and our focus within science to help us provide opportunities to develop our skills within technology. Often in our activities that we have to complete, we need to make use of our mathematical skills, and we also provide opportunities to complete engineering challenges throughout the year. I'm going to use the rest of the time on today's video to celebrate some of our achievements so far in primaries 1 through 6 in both of our terms. In Primary 1 and Primary 2-1, during Term 1, we learned about sound. We learned how it works, how it moves in waves, and how it travels in a direction. We also took this as an opportunity to design and build instruments of our own choosing. In Term 2, we learned about forces. We learned about pushing and pulling. We also learned about gravity and friction. We use this as a fantastic opportunity to design things such as boats, ramps, sails, and even how pneumatic rockets work. In Primary 2 and Term 1, we learned about living things that are so small that we cannot see them. We call these things microbacteria. We also took this as an opportunity of how to explore how to keep ourselves safe from microbacteria that might make us sick, such as viruses and the coronavirus. We looked at how soap keeps our hands clean, and we also looked at how they can travel outside in the air through the use of bubbles. Term 2 saw the introduction of biology and living things. We were then able to talk about and discuss the characteristics of what makes something living and go on scavenger hunts outside to explore and find examples of these. In Term 1, Primary 3-2 also explored living things, but just in a bit more detail. We took this as an opportunity to explore Book Creator within our iPads and created books explaining each of the different characteristics of what it takes to be a living thing. Primary 3-2 maintained their biology focus into Term 2, this time exploring their own human body, specifically looking at that of a skeleton and how it develops, and its role in protecting the vital organs of the body. Primary 4-3 spent Term 1 also looking at biology, but this time through the lens of learning about the scientific method, the process used for all scientific investigations throughout our time in school. We use this process to explore and understand different variables that can affect life growing. Primary 4-3 maintained their focus on the scientific method through into Term 2. In Term 2, we were exploring the basics of chemistry, looking at different types of materials and how they mix together, and even starting to dip our toe in towards chemical reactions. We became a lot more independent in how we use the scientific method and started to formulate our own documents on our iPads to display our understanding and to show our predictions and our conclusions. Primary 4 focused on energy in Term 1. This started at the very basics of understanding that there are different forms of energy that exist, and that it is possible to transfer between different forms of energy, and that there's a constant transferal of energy happening in the world around us, and we spent a lot of time investigating and forming our understanding of how energy is used in our day-to-day life. We spent a lot of time investigating potential energy, how energy can sit until needed, and we even built catapults to demonstrate this. Our number one thing we tried to learn this term is that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only change from one form to another. Primary 4 spent Term 2 then looking at space. In this we covered lots of different areas of science, including physics, astrology and cosmology. We gained a much greater understanding of the difference between planets, stars and other objects in space. We also got a greater understanding of how we now know so much about objects in space, and we used this to help us get a greater understanding of what it is we see in the sky and understanding how we have different seasons and how seasons can be different in different parts of the world at any given time. At the end of the term, we started to work on our graphic design through designing our concept art for our crafts, which we sold at our school fair at the end of Term 2. Primary 5 spent Term 1 looking at living things, building upon the prior knowledge they already had about the characteristics of what it takes to be a living thing. We then used this to further understand how our different biodiversity areas can be so dependent on each other. We looked at this first through food chains, seeing how we transfer energy from one to the other and how it cycles back round, and then ultimately onto food webs, and even explored some real-life examples of what happens when a key element is removed from a food web and how this can have massive implications on the rest of the community. In Term 2, Primary 5 looked at materials. We started this by investigating what it was we already knew and what we wanted to know. Having identified our gaps, we ensured that we understood the basic about materials, and then started a scientific method investigation into topics such as chemical reactions, solubility, and dissolving. Much like Primary 4, Primary 6 kicked off the year also looking at energy. However, they specifically looked at that of sustainable energy versus non-renewable energy. We looked at the impacts that fossil fuels are currently having on our environment and the importance of what it is to move away from fossil fuels and onto natural sources of energy. We completed this term by building a diorama of one of the forms of renewable energy that we think Scotland should definitely invest more in. Primary 6 then concluded the year by doing a deep dive investigation into light, looking to understand how it works, that certain things can either be an emitter of light or a reflector of light, and looking at how we've used light in history to help make things work better, even looking at things such as kaleidoscopes and telescopes. We also then understood that light moves at a universal speed, that the same of gravity, and that light can only move in a straight line. If you have any questions or any feedback on how STEM is being delivered through primaries 1 through 6, I would really appreciate hearing from you. I'm always looking to do my best for all of the children across the school. If you have any areas of expertise or know anyone who would like to be involved in helping deliver STEM to the school, please also don't hesitate to be contacting us, and we'll do our best to engage as best as we can given the current circumstances. Thank you, and looking forward to seeing everyone in terms 3 and 4.